Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome to Message in the Middle. I'm your host, Marianne, and joining me today is Jo Rye, founder of Clarity and Courage, executive coach, author, and someone whose work is rooted not just in decades of professional experience, but in a deeply personal journey that reshaped everything she thought she knew about life, identity, and what truly matters. For more than 20 years, Jo worked inside some of the world's most recognized organizations, leading talent, culture, and transformation efforts. Her focus was always centered on people, helping individuals and organizations grow with clarity, empathy, and purpose. But like so many turning points we talk about on this show, her life changed in an instant. Just 2 days after losing her beloved grandmother, Jo experienced a brain hemorrhage, one that very few people survive. And in that moment, everything stopped. What followed was a long, humbling recovery that required her to rebuild not only her physical strength, but her sense of self. And in that stillness, something began to emerge, a deeper clarity, a different kind of courage, the kind that doesn't come from pushing harder, but from listening more closely. During her recovery, Jo not only focused on healing, but she also fulfilled a lifelong dream, and she wrote her first novel, inspired by a family story passed down from her grandmother. What began as just a few minutes of writing each day became a lifeline, a tribute, and a reminder of the power of storytelling. Out of that experience came Clarity and Courage, a space where Jo now helps others reconnect with who they are, navigate change, and take meaningful steps forward, even when life feels uncertain or overwhelming. Through coaching, mindfulness, and practical tools, she supports people in finding calm in the noise and confidence in their next chapter. Jo, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Marianne. It's really lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
I am glad to have you and to hear more about your story. I'm thinking it's going to resonate with everyone that's listening. But take me back first, before we get into the heart of it, take me back to before everything changed. How would you describe that version of yourself that existed in the world?
Well, that version of me was probably like many of us, actually, I guess I thought I was invincible, not in an arrogant way, but I could just achieve anything, do anything. I worked really hard. I loved my job. I'd happily do 60, 80-hour weeks in big corporate jobs. When I wasn't at work, I was home. My husband's wheelchair bound, so I was a carer. So looking after the house, looking after the home, looking after my husband. And so I was extremely busy all the time. And I'd almost say, did I wear it as a bit of a badge? Maybe, I'm busy and doing great things that I love. But actually, it wasn't suiting me. So whilst I thrived on it, and I also thought, to be honest, Marianne, that I had balance, because I've always been an advocate of mindfulness, meditation, and yoga. And I was still fitting that in every day, and fitting it in. It was important for me to start my days there. And so I thought, well, I've got the yin and the yang, right? I've got balance. I'm doing all this mindfulness and my meditation, and I'm grounding, and then I'm throwing myself into high pressured, stressful things that I love, because it's all about helping people, whether it's in an organization or out. But I clearly didn't have the balance. And I think, for many of us, as the body keeps the score, doesn't it? And
Yes.
we think we can, and we do, but actually it starts to stack up, definitely starts to stack up on us. And that's what happened to me, really. So my life before was very busy. I love life. I've always lived it to the full. My parents always said, even from a baby, I didn't know what my bottom was made for. I'd never sit down. And in fact, I was in a cot. I had to be putting it out of a cot into a bed at 3 months old because I'd thrown myself over the side of the cot. So I think I was just here to live
Yeah.
and grasp life. And that's kind of what I've done. But yeah, it definitely caught up with me. So life before was very much full on.
There's so many of us that do wear that or have worn that busy badge. And I think for many of us, we don't realize it until we realize it, right? And once we realize it, it's crystal clear and you can't unsee it, but you don't see it until you see it. So, for some it's that quiet sort of stirring that starts to bring it on and you start thinking deeper. And for others, there's a big event. And so for you, there was maybe even a couple big events back to back there. So tell us a little bit about how that played out.
Yeah, sure. So we live in a beautiful county in England called Shropshire, which flanks the Welsh border. So it's very hilly or mountainous and it's beautiful. And so we live in a house that dates back to the 12th century and it was extended in 1640 and we've lovingly restored it. And it's taken 20 years to do that. So one of the first events that sort of started to happen is not through fault of our own, but sadly due to human error in the valley, the land around us suffered a landslide. And so we were forced evacuated from our home with no choice. We were given initially an hour to get out. And then they extended that to 2.
Wow.
When someone comes into your home and says, you've got an hour to get out and you've got 20 years of a life and a husband that isn't mobile. And so that was the first situation. And I was like, okay, it's almost like a rabbit in a headlight moment where you're like, okay, what do I pack? What do I take?
Yeah.
So the first thing I did, rightly or wrongly, is I put the dogs in the car and their dog
not
food.
The husband, the dogs.
No, not the husband at this point. I know. Probably
terrible.
Not right. Yeah, I know. So
no, terrible that I'm laughing, but
I know. But it's probably, I don't know. Maybe some people can resonate.
Of course
with that.
They can relate. Yes.
Oh my goodness. He knows I love him. He knows I love him deeply. But so the dogs went in first and the dog food. My husband was second. And all his accessibility and everything else that he needs. And then I just went in the house and grabbed, identification, photos, a few things that I loved. And I packed 2 suitcases as if we were going on holidays for 2 weeks for 4 seasons in one day.
Wow.
And that's it. That was all we had. And I got in the car when I'd got all of that. And I said to my husband, where are we going? I hadn't even thought about that. And he said, it's okay. We can go and live with my brother. I've spoken to him short term, obviously, until we find somewhere. And, you're still reeling in shock at this point. You kind of don't know what's happening. So that was the first element. So with that happening for 2 years, there was fights with lawyers, barristers, insurers, that game of blink that then ensues when you're in that situation. So when I wasn't working full time, I was dealing with all of that, but it was fine. I was getting on with it. So that was one incident. My husband obviously is sadly in a wheelchair, and I say sadly, but it doesn't affect us in our lives and who we are. We still have a great time together, and he's an awesome person actually. So so there was that. And then so we had the landslide. My husband's not fully abled. I'm very close to my nan. We were all living through COVID, if we can all cast our minds back to those crazy times.
Yeah.
And my nan passed away, not because of COVID, actually, I'd just like to say, but she passed away during those times. So we couldn't really see her because we weren't allowed. We were allowed to go in and see her at the very last hours, really, just to say our goodbyes. And I was very close to my nan. So she passed away. And then 2 days later, I think, because I was working full pelt, we were all working crazily because of COVID on screens and hours. My husband, the Barrett, everything outside of that. Nan dying was the final straw, I think. And so I, on this particular morning, I usually go for a run at 5:30 in the morning on my own in the hills with a night torch and my dogs in the dark because it was November. And that morning I went later. This never happens, but I did that morning because my sister-in-law was coming to run with me because I didn't have to be in work. I had a board meeting at 11 o'clock, so I had time. And we went running, and I think we were like 3.5, 4 miles into an ascent. And I had a really strange feeling in my head, like the weirdest feeling ever. It was almost like the baseball cap I was wearing had been pulled so tight on my skull. It was really uncomfortable. And she sort of noticed I was struggling a bit, and she said, you're okay. And I said, I'll be fine. It's just my hat. And she said, do you want to stop? And I said, me being me, busy, invincible, crack on. No, I'll be fine. And I took 3 or 4 paces, and then I collapsed, and the rest, is history, as they say. But
Wow.
yeah, and Marianne, I am so lucky because I know 70, 80% of people die with what I suffered or come out with serious disabilities. And so the counsel to my family was prepare for the worst. And I
Wow.
was very lucky that medically, from the minute I collapsed to when I got picked up, scanned into surgery, there wasn't a break in my chain of treatment. And so, yeah, so that was kind of the day I literally came crashing down, and everything came crashing down. And so, yeah, I was in intensive care and hospital for like 4 weeks or so, and then in hospital for longer. And then I came out from the hospital, and well, when I was in there, I literally had to learn to walk, talk, dress myself. I literally had to relearn things
Wow.
again. Yeah,
Everything.
and so it's very
Wow.
humbling. And for somebody that was fiercely independent,
Yes.
didn't like to show vulnerability, was used to caring and doing for everybody else, suddenly
Yeah.
I couldn't do that anymore. And it was so wholly uncomfortable.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was when it changed. Yeah.
Wow. And do they know what caused it? I mean, you had all this really high stress stuff going on, but does stress cause this, or was there some mitigating factor there?
Yeah, so interesting. I asked my brain surgeon the same thing because I was like, I'm fit, I look after myself, I
Yeah.
eat healthy. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like a glass of wine, now and again, or did. I don't drink now, obviously, too much at all, if at all. But and he just said it's like you see footballers, really fit footballers on a football pitch. They can just drop with a cardiac arrest. So what happened to me, it was a perfect storm. I don't feel stress. I thrive on it,
Mhm.
which is not healthy, by the way. And so, whilst all of these factors in our life were full on stress, I was just ticking them off, going through everything every day, just doing one thing at a time,
Yeah. It's what you do.
doing what was within my control.
Yeah.
And so I had all of that going on. Then I had emotion. So that was sort of mental stress and physical stress, I guess, with my husband and stuff. Then I had the emotional trauma with my nan dying. And that morning, when I woke up, I had to have a proper snot cry. Do you know the sort when
Yeah. Yeah. Ugly cry. I think they call them an ugly cry, right?
yeah, you really don't want anyone to see you. But I've been awake from like 4 in the morning,
Ah.
bubbling snot out my nose and all sorts, really bereft. And I got up with a terrible headache.
Mm.
And I thought, I'll have a caffeine, because I've not slept well. I now know crying raises the blood pressure in the brain.
Yeah.
Put
Caffeine.
caffeine into that,
Yeah.
you're raising it again. Go for a
Running.
run.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing again. So my neurosurgeon said you just create the perfect storm. And I had an aneurysm, and so he said I
Oh,
could have got to 110 and died of a heart attack. But I created the perfect storm that if there was a weakness, I was testing it. I was
got it.
rigor testing it, and yeah, the test failed. So
Wow.
that
Wow.
was it.
So,
Mm.
so for many of us, right, we have these life altering moments or we have these
Mhm.
big events in our life. And at some point when you're going through that, you have this realization that you can't go back to who you were.
No,
Life will not be the same.
no.
Talk to me a little bit about that. Was that like a slow realization, or so you had to relearn everything, but this might be a dumb question, but was your brain like, were you functioning in your brain normally? You knew that had to know how to walk and talk and think all the
Yeah.
things, but you just couldn't do them. Is that
Yeah.
so? When did you have the moment, or was it a slow realization that life's just never going to be the same? It
Yeah.
changes from here on out.
I think initially I didn't believe it would be any different. So one saying that sticks with me all the time, and my neurosurgeon is so right, and it really annoys me. But he says, logically, Joe, you will think you can do things, but cerebrally, you will not be able to.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, he doesn't know me. I'll be back at work next week.
I'm
I'll be back
different.
at
Yeah.
work next month. Yeah, I'll be fine. And he was right. It took me 2 years to recover,
Mm,
I mean, I'm so lucky to be here and I'm so grateful to be here. But he was right. And I remember struggling when I realized actually the realization that actually I'm not going to snap back like an elastic band or a bungee rope. Wow, things are really different here. I am so tired. I can't process things as fast as I could. Certainly in the early days, I mean, exhausted beyond exhaustion, and I couldn't really function too well. And I remember having this conversation with my neurosurgeon because actually he was an amazing man, obviously saved my life.
yeah.
But he was so humble. He's Greek, actually, his origin. And he was more interested in my emotional well-being than he was in the medical side.
Mm,
And so he would always check in with emotionally, how are you? Because actually severe brain damage apparently like that can cause quite clinical depression, which is a kind of a natural outlay of that. And I remember having this conversation with him, and he said to me, do you know what, Jo? Maybe the new version of Jo will be a better version for Jo.
mm,
Because quite frankly, I do not know how you operated with what you've talked us through with your life. And maybe take this as an opportunity to embrace that difference now.
wow.
And so he really helped me to pivot, I guess, to
Yeah.
look at things differently, to accept as well, because it's so hard when you don't recognize yourself anymore on a lot of levels,
Yeah.
and you doubt yourself a lot more because your memory's not so good and the brain retention and all of that's gone, and so you question yourself. And I guess that what that led me on to, and what I came to realize, is that a lot of what we feel as stress, anxiety, or heaviness, it isn't actually coming from the life itself. It's actually coming from the way our mind is interpreting things.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And when we learn to step back from our thoughts, which is what's going on through your head, and question them or simply be present, then there's a natural sense of calm that comes through.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was not about fixing everything then when I realized this. It was about seeing things more clearly and not getting caught up in the noise in my head.
Mm,
And, I think for all of us, most of our suffering is created for humans, is created in our mind, not by the reality itself.
yeah. Love that.
And this really brought that gift of sight to me. I understood that and I started to see it. So I started to be really curious about my thoughts and writing my thoughts down and starting to be observant about my thoughts. And started to, I guess, reframe and see. So, for example, if I was thinking someone's out to get me, I would think actually everything is happening for me, not to me.
Yeah.
I took a sort of step back, really. So, yeah, so that was a big piece for me. And that really helped. That was one thing. The second thing was around choice and the power of choice, which is so, so profound. And we can't choose what happens to us. None of us
We
can.
cannot.
But we can always, always, always choose how we come out of that.
Mhm.
And I absolutely, categorically believe in that. And factually for all of us as well, it only takes 90 seconds once we're triggered by somebody or by anger or an emotion that we don't like, 90 seconds for the body, the human body, to flush those metabolic hormones out of our system and they're gone. So if we're angry or upset beyond 90 seconds, we're actually choosing to be.
Mhm.
So the realization around a lot of that I did really made me, you know, realize actually I do have a lot of choice in what I'm doing and how I show up. And actually, one of the books I audioed, because I couldn't read back at all at the time, one of the books I audioed was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And he has a lovely quote that he says, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, is to choose one's attitude. And
Mm.
it's so true, isn't it?
It is so true. So, so true. I mean, so many great lessons there. Thinking and moving intentionally with curiosity is
Mm.
such a big thing when you're trying to shift and kind of reframing everything. And I totally agree on our thoughts get in the way more than anything else. I am curious though, when, the first part of our conversation, it's clear that your identity was very much the woman that could do it all, the woman with the cape. You know, you have a disabled husband that you're caring for, you have a full-time high-powered job, you have, you know, all these things, and you wore that with a badge, right? So that became who you were.
Yeah.
Right? You were Jo that did all the things, that didn't get stopped, that could just master everything. So now you lose that identity. And I'm curious what rebuilding that looked like day to day, because you had to suddenly find a new identity. How did you actually pick up the pieces and say, let's rebuild? Who is Jo really?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, for me, it was from that self-awareness around my thoughts, around my choices. It was looking inward around what is my purpose? What is it I'm here to do? I've been given a second chance.
Yeah.
What are the things I love doing and I love sharing with people? And I'd like to help more within the world, I guess. And so I sat with that for quite some time. And from my experience came clarity and courage, because for me to sit with what I had gone through, being really confused about who I was, what I was going to be, the clarity came from the stillness. The clarity came from the pause. The clarity came from not rushing at anything, not constantly aiming to keep myself busy, to anesthetize myself from the pain of thinking, but to stop and face into that and look at what that was telling me.
I get that. I mean, I had a similar experience. The pause is so critical too. I think for many of us, we don't have that chance to even get quiet and listen to ourselves until something happens and we have that time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, yeah, I think for all of us, even when we're super busy, is do we give ourselves enough time to pause? And I don't mean to pause to go and do 10 other things because you've got a bit of space in your diary. I mean, like, to pause, to just sit and with a journal and a pen, or sit in nature and just, what thoughts are you overthinking? Is it thoughts like, I can't do that, I'm not good enough, who am I going to be? Okay, well, if I'm thinking those thoughts, how can I look at them in a different way? What are they telling me? What can I do about this? And so it's taking that pause and stepping into, I guess, the messages that come from that. And I really wanted to go back and do what I did. And I knew that that wasn't going to be a choice for me if I was going to have a long-term life. And so I wanted to do what I knew. I wanted to take clarity into the world. I knew I wanted to help other people move from chaos to clarity, from fear to courage, I guess, because I know there's always a way through. But when you're in such a dark place, in those moments when it feels the darkest, you don't see the door. We don't see the way out. We just don't know what we don't know. And so just hopefully being able to take some light into the world and hold space for people to explore that for themselves is just a really lovely thing to be able to do. And that's what I decided to do, because actually once people take that pause, get the clarity, they then have the courage to just go and do what is in their heart.
I agree. It's interesting to me to hear you say, though, that you said that you wanted to go back to your old life. You wanted to go back to doing those things. So was there a moment that you realized I can't, or did you was that a slow roll? I mean, how did that play out? Because did you keep wanting to for 6 months after the hemorrhage, or did you realize in the hospital room a week in that this is never going to be the same?
Yeah, no, it took me, I would say, probably more like 6 to 9 months to realize.
So you were still hoping?
Oh, I was still hoping. And interestingly, and again, another conversation I've had with my brain surgeon around this, because you end up becoming quite good friends. Funnily enough, when someone's been inside your head and literally in your brain, you kind of get to know them quite well, and they get to know you very well. And he calls me his enigma, because I shouldn't have survived, and I should have been left with severe disabilities or because, of where the bleed was and reached. But he said to me, I used to listen to you coming in here going, pretty much, I'm going to get back. I'm going to do, he said, Joe, I'm a brain surgeon. I love what I do. And I would hate for somebody to tell me I could no longer do this.
Hmm.
And so I had no right to tell you you could no longer do what you used to do. He said, I knew you would realize in your own time. He said, but what I also realized is because you are positive, because you are focused, because you are optimistic, that drive was also aiding your recovery,
Mm-hmm.
like a recovery like we would not expect, because your mindset was, even though I knew the statistics, you were, I was very much, I'll do me, thanks. Yeah, I was a bit like, yeah,
Yeah.
not in an arrogant way, just
You don't know
I
me.
can either,
Yeah.
yeah, I can either believe the statistics and live down to them,
Yeah.
or I can do me and take every day as it comes and show up as best as I can for me, no one else at this point. And so, a long way of answering your question there, Marianne, but I guess I believed I'll be back next month. I'll be back. I want to get back.
Mm.
And then there was a slow movement to actually the realization that isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But what does that look like for me going forward now? And I would say I then went through a whole, almost that dark moment we talk about, that,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I don't know anything else. I mean, oh my God,
Yeah.
what am I
How do
going
I
to do?
take these skills and do anything else? This is the only thing
Yeah,
I've done. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All the
yeah,
things.
yeah. Apart from, or do I go back to waitress? Well, I'd end up dropping. It'd
Right.
be like a Greek restaurant actually if I did that now, because my proprioception's terrible. But do I go back to something I did pre-university or at
Yeah.
university or all of those things? But no, I knew I was going to be okay. I believed with every cell in my body, call it God, call it presence, call it whatever you want to. I knew I was coming back for a
Mm.
reason, and I was going to make use of that. And so when I sat in those dark well moments, that's when I sat in the silence. That's when I saw, that's where clarity and courage was born.
Wow. What a gift you had in having that sense of
Mm.
knowing, because a lot of people have to dig deep to find that, right? So that was a gift
Yeah,
too. So good
yeah.
for you. I want to touch on, and you kind of alluded to it, but I know you emphasize taking small,
Mm.
meaningful steps instead of trying to do some big thing to transform if somebody's trying to go through change. So talk to me a little bit about what that looked like for you as you came to this realization, as you started to shift your life and sort of lay out the future for yourself, and what you advise people that you work with to sort of be able to tackle that versus, trying to do it all at once or feel like there's this big thing that needs to happen.
Yeah, or the huge overwhelm that can
Yeah.
come with it. So for me, it's just I had a blank piece of paper, and what is it I would like to do? I just wrote some questions. What is it I would like to do? What am I good at? What would I like to develop still? Because I love learning as well. What is my purpose? And what do I want to do with people, I guess. I just wrote myself a number of questions. So I would suggest the first thing to do is sit and write those down and really just sit with the questions, and don't just answer them and go tick, I've done it, and crack on. No, it's because that's just defeating the object. It's really sitting with those questions, really answering them at a different consciousness level. And so I guess that's the first thing. And then when I realized, okay, so I would like to set up clarity and courage, the next question is, well, how do I do that? What
Yeah. What
what
does that look
what is
like?
that going to look like? And so I did not and do not like social media really. I had a Facebook page, but it wasn't something I was on, if I'm honest. And so I knew that in order to take it out to the world, my best way to do that was through social media platforms. And so I've, I learned about social media. I then listed all the things I didn't know that I'd like to understand and know. And so I just created a little plan that was, I think, sort of from, say, October time, I created the plan. November, I started then to create some material and have a bit of a play with it without sharing, and asking some friends and family what they thought. And then I went live on the 1st of December. And was it perfect? Was it great? No. Is it still today? No, absolutely not. It's imperfectly perfect. But do you know, if we don't start somewhere,
Yeah.
we just get paralysis and we procrastinate, and we, rather than do what we want to do in our heart and would like to go and do because of fear, we'll go and wash the dishes, or we'll go and walk the dog, or
Yeah.
we'll hide in a task. So I literally every day committed to showing up for myself, for clarity and courage every day, for whether it was an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever I could had in the day. So for me, it's as simple as sitting with a few real questions. And that's where obviously coaching comes in and can help, because you can do that with support, so you don't feel, I guess, a bit lost with it,
Yeah.
if that's how you can feel sometimes, or overwhelmed actually is the other thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then once you've got that clarity starts to come, it's okay, now I've got that vision. What steps do I need to put in place to, if my vision is I want to be here in 90 days, what do I need to do for the first 30 days to get to 60 days, and 60 days, and it's just breaking it down into
Yeah.
really small, simple steps, but not boiling the ocean, nothing massive, nothing onerous,
I
just
love that.
small, simple steps.
And I think it's key that your message there is people typically get hung up. The overwhelm comes in when it's, I don't know how to get to the end thing you want.
Yeah.
And you don't have to your
No,
point,
no.
you only looked 30 days ahead, or maybe it's 2 steps, just figure out what are your next 2 steps,
Yeah.
right? And you take them and then you figure out, oh, okay, now I'm here. What do I do the next 2 steps?
Yeah.
I think when we try to think through all the way to the end, 10 years from now, and I'm this guru, whatever it is you are trying to achieve, it just is too big. It's
No.
too much and it's hard to define. So I think that message is really, really, really important for people to hear.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to go back to is you said for people and for yourself to try to think about what their purpose is. And I know that people get hung up on that term because purpose can feel like it needs to be solve world hunger or, these really big things. And I think it's important for people to know it doesn't have to be a really huge thing. Purpose can be whatever it means for you, whatever lights you up, wherever you feel like you're filling the world and being intentional with what you want to do. It doesn't have to be this ginormous thing.
I totally agree with that. I think it's about really tapping into what you love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And really, really tapping into that, and why you're here, and are you honoring what you love
Yeah.
and what energizes you, or are you I guess being seduced by other things in life that either feel easier or pay more
Yeah.
or whatever it might be. And I think no idea, from a purpose perspective, it's having that core value that you can come back to.
Yeah.
So for me, my purpose is to show up in the world and make a difference. That's what I want to do. Now, I don't know what that looks like in 10 years' time.
Right.
And I don't know, how do you define success around that if other people were going to define success? And if we listen to other people's judgments and opinions all the time, that's what can derail us, because actually people are always going to have opinions. People are always going to have judgments. But the way I look at that is what other people think of me is none of my business.
Yes. Yes.
I have just got to do me in a world that feels crazy, feels challenging. Right. Life is an amazing but wild ride, right?
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, setting up clarity and courage, I've had to learn not just the socials, I've had to learn how to create sales funnels, automations, build a system, build a platform, build a website, stuff I just did not have any skill in. And so believe me, there have been tears and there have been moments when I thought, I can't do this. But then I just sit and I center and I think, okay, why am I here again? What is my purpose? And I have grace for myself. And I just think, I'm here. I am showing up. It doesn't matter if it's not right. It
Love
really
that.
doesn't matter. Yeah. And I think that, coupled with a book I read by Oliver Burkeman, which is called 4,000 Weeks, which is the average lifespan which is absurdly terrifying.
Yes.
Um, if we've got 4,000 weeks, how do we want to spend that?
Hmm.
And that's if you live to your 80s. So actually bringing yourself back to that yardale, bringing that myself back to, I'm still here.
Yeah.
And actually, I can do this. And all I need to do is take one step in front of the other.
Such a great message. Just one step in front of the other.
Mm,
I love that.
mm.
So I want to give us time. I have two more questions before we get wrapping up, but I
Sure.
want to make sure we hit on your book because that's a big part of your story
Yeah.
and sort of a legacy, family legacy at this point.
Yeah.
How did that play into your healing, I guess, your recovery?
Yeah, well, I guess for me, I'd always wanted to write a book. This book, actually, for as long as I can remember, and I think most of us might have a book in us somewhere about something that's happened in our lives, or a family story, or something.
Yeah.
And I always thought, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to come back to it. I will write it. I'll start next week. I'll start next month. And life was busy, and it was something I never ever had time for, or didn't make time for. And then when I had the brain hemorrhage, it gave me this most amazing gift. Amazing gift, apart from life. It gave me time.
Yes.
It gave me time to sit, time to write.
Yeah.
And so, in those moments of recovery, when I was not really capable of much, I would just write. I didn't know what I was writing. I didn't know if it was making sense. Some days I'd just write for a minute because that's literally all I could manage. Some days a few minutes more, etc. So, and it kind of built like that. And so I wrote word for word. Then the words turned into paragraphs. The paragraphs turned into chapters, and the book was born. Yeah, and that book is based on a true story of my nan's brother, my uncle, and his story in World War II. And it's around life challenges. It's about when things come along and we don't think we can get over things. And actually, in World War II, with what my uncle went through and his wife, they survived.
Mm.
They came through that. And so for me, the story was a lifeline for me in terms of hope,
Yeah.
but it was also a way I could feel close to my nan because she always told that story with reverence. And I just almost felt closer to her through that loss, and honoring her as well.
I love that.
And so the book isn't published yet, actually. It's with agents at the moment. So I'm really hoping that it does become published. Yeah. And so that's really what the book is about.
I love that. Well, and I love that in a time where you were searching for a new identity, it was a lifeline, not just to Nan, but I think to a new life and a purpose. And I imagine every day that you're writing, it's a reminder that listen, if they could get through X, Y, and Z, well, then I certainly can get through this, right? So I imagine that was there as well. So that was a gift in itself.
It was, absolutely. And just to, just like you said, for me to feel close to my nan as well. And it's Yardale, it was amazing. Tribute to my nan.
Love that.
Who I miss every single day, and to her brother, really, and the woman he loved, who made, impossible choices in extraordinary times, and for me, and I think you said this as well, really, it's a testament to the power of storytelling.
Yeah.
That even though my nan's gone, the stories survive beyond people's passing.
Yeah.
And it was just for me, a lovely thing to do. And also gave me purpose with that time.
The story and the memories, I mean, that's my goal with my grandchildren is just to build enough memories because I have them with my grandma, just like you did with your nan.
Yeah.
They live on, and through those stories and those experiences, once we're gone, they still have that. So I think that's a gift. That's a gift for them. So I'm glad you have that.
Yeah,
well, I always like to wrap by asking if there's only one message that you can leave with the listener, what would it be?
Oh, wow.
I know that's hard.
I think my message to everyone would be, first and foremost, you do you. What's really important is showing up for yourself every day in whatever way that looks like. Just being you, not worrying about the noise of what's going on around you. We can't change that.
Yeah.
We can't change what's going on in the world at the moment. And I'm sure many of us would love to. But what you can do is choose how you get out of bed in the morning every single day, how you show up, and whether you choose to take light into the world for people or not. And if we all chose to wake up every day and just take a little bit more light into the world for ourselves and for other people around us and share more of the good, then I absolutely think more light would soon go around this world.
I love that. I love that. Well, Jo Rye, Clarity and Courage. I will put all your links in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you. I've really loved it, Marianne. Thank you so much for inviting me. And yeah, I've just really enjoyed it, and hope certainly that for the listeners, some things resonate and help. And know if you're out there, you've got this. You'll get through, even on your darkest days. If you don't feel like you will, or you feel a bit lost, tomorrow's a new day. This afternoon's a new afternoon.
Keep on. Make the decision to keep on. I love it. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of Message in the Middle. I hope you found something in this conversation that reminded you that you're not alone and that midlife isn't about winding down. It's about waking up. You're not done. You're just becoming. If this episode speaks to you at all, please share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And if you're enjoying the show, I'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave a review. It really helps other women find this community and this podcast. Until next time, take care of yourself.